Welcome to a sunny day here in Easthaven County, where we've just built the original old harbor of Fort John, complete with a declining fishing industry and modern redevelopments. I got a lot of great and very nuanced feedback on this build, some of which I hope to implement a little later, but this episode is going to focus on preparing Easthaven for the future through some new infrastructure, but most importantly, some major changes to the actual map. Because as Fort John has steadily grown, I have started to feel the restrictions of the current geography of this archipelago. We just don't have a lot of room for expansion, and while I'm not looking to build Dallas or Houston levels of low-density sprawl, Easthaven County is never gonna feel complete without a lot more low-density development. So we're gonna reclaim a ton of land to increase the amount of buildable space and dramatically change the look of the map. We've also just had yet another new patch with major gameplay changes, including what looks to be a major overhaul of how citizens age in the game. Now, two quick things right before we dive in. First, if you enjoy my content, liking and commenting on this video for engagement really does help, thanks. Second, I've begun trialing save game sharing on Patreon, with the Riverview save game already being available with a full guide on how to install it. And I expect Easthaven and some other cities to be made available very soon. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my Patreon. Alright, so I've just loaded up the Easthaven County save game and the game is paused. So the new patch hasn't had any chance to take effect just yet, and apparently the intended outcome of these new age calculations is for the senior citizen group to make up a quote-unquote more reasonable percentage of the total population. But to achieve that, they do state that all current seniors will transition to the adult age group instead, ranging from young adults to middle age to close to retirement. This should be a pretty dramatic change in a city of this size. So if we go to city statistics and we move down to age, this is the current makeup, and it's been pretty stable ever since the founding of the city. So seniors make up around 13, maybe 14,000 of the total population of 67,000. I'm gonna hit play, and then this graph should update with a pretty dramatic change in a little while. Okay, I mean, I guess I knew what was gonna happen, but it looks even crazier when you look at the actual graph. Now, I can't help but wonder how this affects the rest of the city. I mean, like the strain on services and all kinds of things. They do state that you can expect unemployment to rise, which I guess makes a ton of sense, but I'm curious to see how much, because we have fought pretty hard to get unemployment levels very low. In fact, at the beginning of the, or rather the end of the most recent episode, it was below 1%, which isn't necessarily economically healthy either, but you know, it's a very, very low percentage. Let's open up Infoloom and have a look. It is 27.4%. What does the vanilla calculations tell me? 28.5. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's and seniors make up 0.4% of the total population now. So I guess it all makes sense. But I think it's fair to say that the best thing we can do now is open up a couple of nice graphs for all of us to look at. I'm just gonna rearrange them a little bit, something like this maybe. And then I'm just gonna speed up the game and let the simulation run for a little bit, and we'll see kind of where the city settles, because we do have some open positions in our labor market as well. So I don't think we're completely screwed, and I don't want to panic. So I'm just gonna move into photo mode. I'm gonna jank this up to 8, and then we're just gonna let time pass. Okay, so it certainly took a little while, but unemployment is now sitting at around 9.5%, which is pretty healthy, I'd say. And if we check our overall job count, we are approaching 30,000 and we still have quite a few open positions. And I'm pretty sure that if we check our statistics, we'll see that our companies continue getting more wealthy. So they continue to level up, which ultimately opens up new job offerings. If we move into age, we will see a steady increase in the amount of seniors. It's still quite low, because if I bring this to 6 months, we see the dramatic drop we had earlier. But I'm also expecting that as more and more people become seniors, they will eventually retire from the labor market, and that should free up some positions as well. So I think we're in a pretty good spot to continue on. So let's get on with some of those big changes I have planned. And in essence, as explained in the intro, we just need more land. And I think if you look at the current geography of this part of southeastern Massachusetts, then yes, you do have islands and some archipelagos, but they're mainly like bigger singular islands, while Easthaven is super fragmented. So I think law-wise and realistically, it's probably just going to be a better idea as well to combine some of these islands and just overall make them a lot bigger. To do this, I think we need to clean up some of our sea lanes a bit though, because we have two that move westwards. So these move inland towards the eastern shores of the US, while the free sea lanes out here move towards the Atlantic Ocean. So I think it makes sense that we at the very least delete this one, because this one is probably placed in an area where I do want to do a ton of land reclamation, and then we'll keep this one intact. I think it's fine. We have a sea lane providing trade opportunities with some of the port cities that we'll find somewhere in here. Let's pause the game and remove these segments. I am contemplating also removing this sea lane here. The main reason I haven't done yet is that it looks kind of cool, and if I can keep it and just work around it, I would probably prefer to do so. But it may have to go in the future. It's obviously making, it's gonna make it impossible for this to be one continuous island, but I really don't mind. I think that's all right. To kick things off, we're gonna buy a ton of tiles. I expect to, at the very least, work with this area, potentially an even larger space, but we'll start here and still making good money. So not too much of an issue, I guess. I'm going to do the terraforming, or at least part of the terraforming, in 2 steps. So instead of just defaulting to a level that is above the seawater so that we can reclaim the land in a very easy way, I am just going to right click and grab some of this shallow seabed here, and I'm just going to kind of lay down a foundation utilizing that. So I'm gonna try and show what I mean. It's a little easier than explaining. So for instance, to reclaim a ton of this space over here, I first want to just get this in place. So we're just gonna elevate all this. We don't have any sea lanes here, so I think it makes a lot of sense with all these islands, and we even have a bit of marshland down here to have it be kind of shallow. Now that I've done that, I can right click and grab like an actual above water level, and we can just kind of brute force our way here. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to do like a really rough outline to kick off. I do want to have a bit of a bay and the passageway here between these islands and the island where West Point is located, because I still want it to be a really complex environment with a lot of water features and have that be like the main thing. I just need more land. And then we're just going to use the shift terrain tool to add, it's not even going to be hills you can actually see, but it's just to get a bit of contour lines into the environment and just make it look a little more natural. It is always going to look a little weird if the whole thing is just flat. And we have the existing contour lines to kind of showcase, the hills that I can kind of continue. I know this part of Massachusetts in real life is actually pretty flat, but I mean, I guess this is a creative liberty we're taking just to make sure things are a little more interesting. Oh, and of course, the elephant in the room is that the outside boundaries of the map is actually filled with mountains that I just can't do anything to. So yeah, it always looks super barren without any trees, and it's not like I want to do actual detailing before we get much more terraforming done, but I do just want to see how it's actually gonna pan out when we start adding in the trees. So I guess I can't help myself. Now that I've bought the tiles, I can of course disable anarchy and just get these placed. I'm just gonna place a few forests and a few bushes and kind of see how this all looks. It's already looking pretty nice, but I'm gonna try and make a thick cover of bushes using the London plane. So I'm gonna grab the two biggest sizes, and then I just need to see how much we can elevate these into the ground. It seems that 5 is pretty good, but 4 is probably sufficient, and then we'll go for a brush and a size of 100, and we're gonna be cheeky and enable anarchy so that we can really just up the density. And then I'm gonna see how it looks creating this thick bush cover just in some random spots. It's just to kind of break up the terrain a bit. As a proof of concept, I think it works fairly well. The big change is going to be the land reclamation we're going to do in this general area, because that's going to be a much more obvious direction to bring the sprawl of Fort John. So just going to check the sea lines here. I think they are as good as they're going to be. We could bring this one a little closer to the coastline here if we're cheeky to reclaim even more land. Let's actually just go ahead and do that. So we're going to have the continuous tool still. Gonna snap to 180, and then we're gonna make a sharp turn here and follow the coastline near, what is that, West Thornton? It is, and that's gonna give us a little more space for reclamation on this side. So we're gonna do the very same thing. We're gonna grab the level here just beneath the level of the water surface. We're going to mix things up a bit, so it's not all terraforming in this episode, because, at least personally, I'd found that a little boring. And now that we have reclaimed a ton of new land, let's future-proof it a bit by providing some new infrastructure, because I'm thinking that as soon as we start bringing in a sizable population and more workplaces and institutions as well to this new island, this bridge here, the Massachusetts Route 28, as it crosses this strait, is going to become quite a bottleneck. So I need at least one more direct high-capacity connection. So we're gonna try something that may or may not be possible due to current bugs within the game, but I kind of want to see if I can dig out a tunnel to cross underneath the strait right here, so that we connect from this peninsula, which will probably require a bit of additional terraforming, to this peninsula over here, because we already have a major avenue that kind of cuts through this area and connects up the port with the rest of the city. So I think this is going to be really well used, because I am planning to have additional port facilities and heavy industry out here as well. Now, as I said, a little additional terraforming is probably necessary, and I've already done a bit of the groundworks, because as you can probably see, I have raised the ocean floor quite a bit here. And I find this, actually we're gonna raise it even more. I find this helps quite a bit when trying to build tunnels, because obviously the tunnel is going to clip through and look really weird, actually, if the ocean floor is very, very deep, and we don't need it to be this deep at all. I mean, it's like 70 meters deep here, and that's not necessary for the current ships we're seeing. So now that I've raised it a little more, there's only about, 25, 23 meters deep here, which I think is going to be perfectly fine. Yeah, the tunnel thing is going to be real complex. So I am also going to grab this level here, and then we're basically just going to terraform all the way up to the crossing. So I know this is going to look a little ugly, but this is just so I know exactly where the sea lane is, because this is automatically constrained when I try to terraform here. And I need I need a good amount of land, unfortunately, on either side of the tunnel. Otherwise, the bug is going to occur. And if you don't know what the bug is, then basically your tunnel would look flooded if it's too close to the actual water. So it might not even be unavoidable here, but we're gonna give it a go. Here goes nothing. We're gonna grab the 4-lane 2-way highway. That should be sufficient, and hopefully we can always upgrade it. Then let's lower that 15 meters down into the ground. Gonna disable some snapping here. I'm thinking I'm gonna remove that. It is a tunnel segment. I don't think I have to explicitly state that. That should be the case just by virtue of it being lowered 15 meters. I'm gonna place a segment and it looks absolutely wonky. Now, presumably, it's because I need to lower it additionally. Yeah, okay, I just need to select the nodes with move it just once, actually, and that kind of fixed it. Just kind of drag it a bit, drag this segment out a bit and get it perfectly aligned. Because I need to make sure that we have reached the shore before I start elevating it, otherwise it's just gonna cause issues. Something like this. Let's give it another go. I'm gonna snap to it, and I need to watch the elevation change here, obviously. So let's see. I need a lot of space for this tunnel segment, but I really don't mind. I think that's gonna be just fine. And I think 12% is sufficient. And we've got water down here, but it's not a lot. So with a bit of prop use and customizing this tunnel, we should be able to make this look all right. You know what? I just got an idea for something that I may very well come to regret, but I figure we might need some train tracks here as well to do this crossing, especially if I'm gonna build some industry out here. So I was thinking we could create a custom version of this highway and add in some trains and some rail. Oh man, we're gonna give it a go. This is gonna be tricky. Let's just add in a regular segment out here so that I know what I'll be working with. I'm just gonna quickly make a bit of room. That doesn't work. Something like this. There we go. We'll grab road builder, we'll click, and this is going to be a, let's see, 4-lane 2-way. We can shorten that. 4-lane 2-way highway with trains, plus trains. Let's reduce the speeds a bit, maybe 85. We'll add in some piping, some zoning, why not? Adding some traffic, I don't think I want that. And let's see, I'll need some train tracks. And I'll add them to this side. We'll make sure that they have the same directions. Then I'll add in, let's see, I'll turn this into a train type shoulder so that we get some catenaries. I know we don't strictly use these for the industrial rail lines we've got throughout the city. But I mean, just in case we might want to bring some traffic through here, some passenger traffic through here. We'll add an additional one. Is that turned to the wrong side? How does that look? Yeah, that looks kind of odd. So we'll just flip the direction here. There you go. That looks a little more right. Then I guess we should probably grab a median in between here. I think this median might be turned to a wall when you create this as a tunnel segment. And I'll try to add a median between the traffic lines, all lanes, sorry, as well, to see if that has the same effect. And I think that's it. I do think that's it. All right, so I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna grab this and I'm just gonna replace the tunnel segment here and bring it up, and I'll get back to you. All right, so we've got the underground segment in place, the tunnel segment, and the medians are actually turned into walls that kind of separate all types of traffic here. I guess the ones between the two directions of vehicle traffic isn't strictly necessary, but it's gonna look pretty cool. Now the issue is I'm gonna need as smooth a transition, or elevation rather, as possible. probably gonna break some rules here, and you know, it might be like 3 or 4% for the trains, which is too much for heavy cargo traffic, but yeah, we'll just have to kind of go with it, I guess. So I'm gonna do a little cleanup here and a bit of additional terraforming, because I don't think this is going to be possible without utilizing the entire stretch here up until, I guess, we'll intersect around here. That's gonna be what I'm hoping for, at least. So I'm just gonna terraform a little more, because otherwise we're gonna have the issue with water flooding the tunnels, which I obviously don't want. Although it is a bit of a shame to cut into this this bay here, but maybe we can do a bit of changes, make it look all right afterwards. I guess right now the main priority is really just to try and get this thing working. We will grab our custom highway again and make sure we snap to about here, because we should be sufficiently close to the shoreline now. And I guess we need a complex curve. So let's see, we'll elevate to, actually we're just gonna click here, we're gonna click around here, and then we're going to elevate all the way up and try and connect seamlessly to this connection. 4.2%. You know what? We're gonna try, and I can live with that if that is the case. We've got a ton of water flooding. Hopefully I can fix that. I guess maybe this water is a little too close. I'm just gonna try and fix that. Yeah, hitting play kind of works. Helped out a little bit. There's a bit of water here that I'm gonna try and fix as well. But before I do that, I'm gonna grab manipulation mode, and then I'm hopeful that if I just kind of touch one of these nodes, I can get the weird transition here fixed, and that did seem to work. Perfect. So I've done a little cleanup, and I'm generally happy with how it looks, but the big thing now is of course connecting the rail tracks. There's let's see, maybe crossing through these offices. I am removing a few workplaces, but I don't see any other way, and I guess I'll have to kind of raise this node to this node, and we'll try and raise that segment as well, just to make things look all right, because there are some terrain height differences here. Let's grab these non-electrified tracks for now, just so we can get this in place. A continuous curve, I think, will enable anarchy, otherwise it's not gonna be possible. And I want to move as close to this little parking segment as I can. So we'll just go for this curve, and I bet we could have a pretty good connection right here. I'm expecting some texture issues at this node. I don't think that's avoidable, unfortunately. You know, it is a highly customized road builder road, so we'll see. Actually, I think we need a complex curve. Yes, so we'll move a bit further out here, then move a bit down right here, and let's see. Snap to this segment and just try and bring this through. And how is this gonna look? Yeah, a bit of clipping, not perfect at all, but it works and it's connected, so I'm gonna save the game now before I mess anything up. I've just added a little asphalt surface texture here, and I mean, I kind of think that works. It's definitely not perfect, but it does remove the worst of the clipping right here. Let's dive into a bit of detailing to see if we can make this look a little better by, yeah, just having an extra level of detail. And I'm so afraid that as I start terraforming, we'll have issues with the water once more, but we'll try and see if we can figure it out, make it look all right. So I'm gonna add this layer of alleys and add in key walls around it. And then I'm gonna try and do a little terraforming just to see how far I can push it. So we're moving to landscaping, grab our level terrain tool, and doesn't have to be as deep as we've already established.
So after extensive tweaking, we don't have any more flooding, but yeah, I mean, I guess there just had to be a pretty significant distance between the shoreline and the tunnel, but it's all right. I guess we might be able to even build our zone something here, and the bay is back, so that's pretty nice. The only thing now is getting the connection going to this side over here. And how do I do this? I mean, if I start from here, I'm gonna have to reverse the segment, and that is likely to cause issues. So I kinda just want to maybe start all the way in here, at least as far back as the snapping will allow me. I mean, I could just make a segment here and get it even further, but we'll take whatever this is going to give us. 4.7% elevation change. We're going to go with that. Gives us yet another very, very long entrance segment, but I really don't mind. And once again, it's all complicated by, you know, the fact that I'm bringing rail as well. If you're just doing a vehicle or a car traffic tunnel, you can obviously use much steeper inclines and declines, but I think this looks pretty good actually, and I guess this allows me to really widen the straight as well, which, you know, is probably the justification for why you'd build a tunnel here in the first place. So it's not all bad. We'll just have to kind of work around any of the issues we encounter, but I mean, it's starting to look pretty nice. As for the actual, like, proper detailing of the, you know, some of these segments here where the tunnel goes underground and we need, you know, some AC stuff, I'm just gonna keep it really, really simple because as I mentioned, I do expect us to add quite a bit of industry on the other side of this straight here, and potentially right here as well, where we're currently working. We could have some industry surrounding the tunnel entrance, which would be pretty cool. But until we get there, I'm just gonna add some really, really simple looking stuff like this, and then maybe some AC units here and alongside this stretch to kind of pump air down into the tunnels. To continue with the infrastructure projects, I want to turn this overpass into like an actual bridge because it looks a little rough. I don't want to reduce the capacity. We'll do that as we move further westwards because much of Route 28 in southeastern Massachusetts is actually only a two-lane, two-way national road-ish kind of road, and we obviously have a proper interstate here. Anyways, I'm gonna pause the game and just get rid of the existing quote-unquote bridge. And I think we'll reduce a couple of segments here as well, because I'll have to do a beautiful tie-in to a new type of highway. I say beautiful, but I shouldn't sell this project before I've actually made it beautiful. Anyways, I do have a couple of custom bridges I can use through a mod I've grabbed from the PDX mods. It's called Bridges and something. It's a little embarrassing, I don't know it, but I want to use the 4-lane 2-way suspension bridge. Now in the vanilla game, you have to combine the 2-lane highway 1-way suspension bridge, 2 of those, and you can't really align them super close together because they're gonna clip into each other. So I'm pretty happy that we have this option now through this mod. And basically, I'm just gonna enable contour lines, and we already have kind of like the stage, the setting stage here for the bridge. So I'm just gonna find the outermost point, and enable anarchy, and then we'll bring it across to about here, I think. Yank. Now there's a few changes I want to make here. One is that I don't want 4 of these massive pillars. So something we can do is we can just upgrade these to these regular segments. Just gonna do that on either side. I'm gonna make sure to upgrade it to bridge segments, and we'll add in some supporting pillars in just a second, don't worry. And then I kind of wanna increase the span of these 2 superstructures, if you can call them that at least. And I'll see what kind of tooling is gonna be the best here. So I presume manipulation mode is the best, because I can then hold control and make sure I draw in like a straight line. And there we go, just increased the span of these cables. I hope that was obvious. I'm gonna click here, hold down Alt, and we're gonna drag that real close to the other small subnode, and we're gonna drag this in so that it kind of moves into place, and that looks fairly symmetrical, I would say. Now I actually forgot something. I kind of wanted to increase the span between these 2 towers as well, but I guess I can still do that. It's just gonna be, let's see. Actually, I think this might just be fine. So I don't think there's ample space right now for a ship down here. But a good way to check is just to place a prop version, of course. I'm just gonna grab this one, move it over here, move it, and then we'll bring the part of the ship that has the towers with the, antennas or radars rather underneath here. And the ships are probably like even taller in the air. Hello, you're kind of off-road, mate. I'm just gonna find a reference ship. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just gonna check, how far below the ship actually sticks. Is it more if it's loaded? It isn't, but that would be a cool feature. So I think I have a general idea. And this actually seems to be sort of right. Maybe lowering it a little bit, something like this. Then I'm gonna move it to the very center, because I think the shipping lane is, yeah, it's pretty much dead center between the 2 pillars. Then we're going to move it, and hopefully I can grab. Actually, let's just get this out of the way. I can grab this node here, and then I can just elevate that to make sure that there's a clearance. And that requires quite a bit of elevation, so I may have to elevate other nodes as well, although that already looks so cool. And it also highlights that we need to elevate this to at least the staging area, something like this. Oh yeah, that is looking nice. And I guess this stage here is actually lower than the other, which is kind of causing the issue, but pretty good start. Now, before I add the additional pillars, maybe 1 or 2 at the very end of these 2 segments here, I just want to connect it up to Route 28. And this is always going to be an interesting process. Fortunately, oh, there's a ship. If I can just bring down this to ground level and not have it as an elevated segment, as well as these 2, then it's usually a little easier when you don't have the guardrails on either side to contend with, because that seems to make it a little more complex. So I'm just gonna snap here and basically just make a very small segment that isn't elevated. That's the most important thing. And I'll just bring it to about here. And I'm gonna right click this. And sorry, I'm gonna select it with move it and select this height. We'll move in here and make sure it's not a bridge segment. Hopefully these 2 don't have to be bridge segments either when I kind of connect to this, but to achieve that I probably have to just make this a more like general hill, something like that. Let's get the connection going. what I was trying to say before the language barrier butchered my words is that, generally speaking, working with non-elevated segments just seem to be easier. Word of caution though, this is always a little finicky and it's always a little crash prone as well. So I really try to just I'm not gonna do that. I try to move slow and try and make these things look all right at a very, very slow pace. Et voila! That didn't take any time at all, trust me. We'll grab the same 2-lane highway and we'll just move in and try and get some extra pillars in place. I think that's gonna look real nice. So we'll just double click right here and let's see. I just feel that adding these in makes it look a whole lot better, because generally the game doesn't necessarily generate a ton of pillars when you map out these elevated highway segments. So I like to just try and get these added in. Add in a few more here, add in a few more here, and that looks much better, I think. And we'll connect this one up through sheer magic. YouTube magic at play. This connection works even better, I think. Although it might not be necessary because I'm gonna downgrade somewhere out here anyways. But I mean, using the separate highways makes it a little easier to create like dedicated on and off ramps and interchanges and stuff like that. So I guess it's all right. We'll grab the 4-lane 2-way highways so that we can add some pillars. Let's see. I can add the first one around here. Can I add one that is going to be close to it out here as well? If that's even necessary. I don't know if that strictly is necessary, like from an engineering perspective. But then again, I don't know if the bridge even makes sense from an engineering perspective. So I think the cool thing when doing this is you can kind of see the other pillar there, how that kind of disappeared because, you know, you can move these too close to each other. So as you guys can see, if I add it out here, this one should stay, it does. And then maybe just add one additional one. I think that kind of matches the look on the other side, and our bridge is now complete. And we're gonna hit play, let the traffic kind of recalculate. And that looks pretty nice. Something that isn't as nice is the massive traffic jams we're seeing here alongside this stretch of, I guess you could say, national road. And it's because I've severely underestimated the amount of traffic moving to and from Queenscape and the rest of Fort John. But I mean, 2,000 people live out here and there's even more jobs. So I guess it makes sense, especially with this apartment complex we built just recently. And I think the main solution is just to upgrade so that Queen's Passage stretches all the way through here as an actual avenue. I'm probably going to remove parts of this segment because it's kind of misaligned to the remainder of Queen's Passage. So this is going to cause even more traffic issues, obviously, but we'll manage. I'm going to grab the 4-lane road, I think, without the divider in between. And just try and kind of align that to an angle with Queen's Passage that makes sense. We're just going to go for a simple curve here so that I can... Actually, I should branch out from this spot here. Wait a minute. I'm going to do this right now. First, we're going to upgrade this segment here so that I make sure we don't have any misalignment. Let's just get rid of a few of these paths. We can always rebuild those, but I just need more capacity out here. It's, you know, the road structure is way too rural for all the commercial activity that's actually happening out here. And I can see I'm going to have an issue with some of the upgrades here because we have a very specific and different roads. So we're just going to do something like this. I think that kind of works. Yep. Get this upgraded as well. Probably this one as well. All the way up to... I mean, we can kind of start with this. Upgrade. I think that kind of works, although this is looking fairly wonky. There we go. And then the small segment here, not to forget it. And then we can branch off from this segment here and make sure I don't have to do a ton of custom alignment. That would be super annoying. And I guess that kind of just works. And hopefully the extra lanes is sufficient and just what we need. I mean, I do need to make upgrades to avenues around this place as well, probably, because we've got a lot more space for development out here. And probably turn this highway segment into an avenue as well, leading somewhere down here to connect and provide easy access through the tunnel. Well, joke's on me, there's actually still a bit of a bottleneck here, so let's just do a little upgrade to an async setup with the 3 lanes moving into town. And we can just overall probably make this look a little nicer by just using the manipulation mode to kind of fix up this big intersection here. Something like this. Let's see if that helps. All the cars are rearranging. We've got a lot of traffic moving right here, so they're not actually looking to enter the main stretch here and go to downtown. Both lanes here are used, so maybe we'll need to do yet another upgrade in this direction. That did seem to help with this bottleneck between Bay Road and Hamilton Street. Still a lot of traffic bunching up here alongside Queen's Passage, but it's a little more manageable and all 3 lanes are in use. A bit of time has passed and things have now cleared up. Cool. Now I know what I want to do next. We are actually going to move into, let's see, over here to Chowder Bay. Because we've got a few infrastructure upgrades to do here as well. So one thing we can do is that now we have this bridges and pillars mod. I think that's what it's called. Still can't remember it. Still pretty awkward. We can upgrade this bridge here, which is an avenue right now. As you can see, traffic is kind of slow. You have some pretty wide sidewalks as well. We can grab this custom bridge here, which is basically the very same version, just as a highway segment. And we can make that upgrade and traffic is gonna speed up immediately. The next issue we're gonna fix is actually also, it kind of starts at the Windham Bridge right here that we just upgraded. And I don't know if you guys, yeah, of course, no traffic is showing it right now, but generally I have noticed that we have quite a bit of traffic here on the left lane that will turn at around this point and move in the other direction. I'm not sure if it's been fixed by upgrading this to a highway segment and the cars can't do it anymore, but they could do it on the avenue at least. And the main reason for this issue is that a lot of traffic moving eastwards, or sorry, this is northbound, sorry, here on Route 28, actually wants to move into Chowder Bay. So they need to get on this off-ramp to get to this intersection. But there's no easy way to do it. So previously they would move up here, they would do a little turn, and then they'd move off this off-ramp, landing them in, what is this? This would be Narrowwood, and then they turn to downtown. One way we can fix that is just getting an additional off-ramp that kind of moves from around here and connects directly up to this one. It's gonna be a real squeeze given the public housing towers of Nares Hill, but yeah, it's just gonna make this area a little more gritty and grungy, I guess. So let's disable snapping and get in the ramp at around this part. Just gonna do a little upgrade to get a starting area here. We're gonna upgrade this to a bridge segment, of course. We'll grab the single off-ramp and maybe just this, maybe the single curve is just gonna work. Or maybe I'm being way too optimistic, but I'm gonna see if I can find a good spot. This is super finicky. Is that gonna work? 2.7%, that's not anything crazy. Okay, a little tweaking and then we're good to go, I think. And there isn't a ton of traffic right now because it's technically nighttime, but we are seeing a bit of use here, so that's nice. I've wanted to do this for a long time. I didn't know that what caused the issue out here, but yeah, fixed now, I think. Before we move on to the next little project, I have a confession to make. I have reworked the tunnel. And can you guys see what I've changed? Yeah, it's now just the basic 4-lane highway and the basic 2-track railway that is moving underneath here. It took a long time and required a lot of tweaking, but I think we still have a pretty nice seamless look. And the reason I did it was that the custom road I created early on in the episode was meant to, you know, provide some flexibility. But in reality, getting the transition right from the custom road to vanilla roads and railways just didn't really work out. And I couldn't stop like rail stops from spawning along the intersections, even though no rail tracks were actually crossing any of the roads. So yeah, a bit of a bummer, but it was fun to try, and I guess the vanilla approach just seemed to work out best in the end. I figured we'd wrap up with a bit of new development to actually place a few buildings in this episode. And what about adding some to Chowder Bay? We've already done a bit of infrastructure upgrades out here, but it's been so long since we've actually dedicated some time to a bit of expansion, and we do actually have some space here. We've got this bay area here, which is kind of squeezed in between some very, very heavy infrastructure. And I think it could be pretty fun to have a road that kind of cuts through this area, makes its way up some of the hills, moves underneath some of the existing bridge structures, and connects up somewhere here in Moonlight Bay. So let's see, I have this narrow 2-lane 2-way national road I created in Road Builder. It has zoning capabilities, sewage treatment, water, power, everything we need basically. And then I have the constant slope enabled so that I can cut through some of the mountains a bit more smoothly. I will enable contour lines though, so that I don't, you know, so that I try and respect the contour lines somewhat at least. It's a bit of an intersection here where I think we're just gonna branch out from. We'll enable continues, disable all snapping, and let's just get going. So I guess I need some medium density as well as some low density out here. So we're just gonna have the road move its way through this hillside here. And I'm gonna see if I can avoid more than like, you know, more than 10% increases or decreases in elevation, which actually looks to be a little tricky. I actually think I want to add some of these tower blocks up here. It appears to be public housing. I'm not sure if it is low rent housing. Oh, I think it is, just from the UK theme. So let's see, I probably need just a bit of parking to actually make that look more realistic. So we'll grab this contour level and just make room for like one of these parking roads we have, and we'll see if that is enough. So let's see, I'm gonna move in here and grab this one-way parking alley, disable snapping, and actually I think we can do 2 of these. Can I use the parallel mode tool? Maybe a curve is gonna look cool. Yes, very cool. Just like this, and then we'll just connect that up with like a regular alleyway, I guess. Oh, not parallel mode. Actually, that's not gonna work. We're gonna do something like this, and then we'll branch off with these new one-way alleys, because that's also just gonna make sense with how we configured the parking in the first place. So we'll just working without snapping here, so things can look super wonky, but also gives us quite a bit of freedom, of course. And connect. I can't see what I'm doing because of all the trees. We'll just get disconnected and disconnected. That looks super weird. We're going for it. Let's get some of these tower blocks in place. One
and a 2 and 3. And I'm going to lower these to the height of the parking, just like that. And then you're gonna need a bit of terraforming here just to make the cut into the cliffside here look a little more subtle. We're gonna be adding in 1,000,000 pine trees, or spruce technically. And let's just have a look. It sort of has like a Hong Kong vibe, which I wasn't really going for, but I actually kind of like it. It's a very unique, odd little location, and it's got some cool infrastructure right next to it. And these new towers took us across 70,000. I just got to say that, and then it bumped down to 69 again. Oh well, 69,999. Come on, game. I'm trying to record here. Ah, there you go. Anyways, a bit of traffic chaos here. I guess that is to be expected. So we'll be adding in a roundabout. I say that. Can we just make this look all right? I think we might. And that really did help. There's still a bit of a queue here, but I mean, it should be a momentary thing. A ton of people are trying to move into these towers. Like, oh man, almost 1,200 people live here already. So I guess it's expected that we'll see a bit of a chaos until things start to settle. Let's add the final development before we wrap up this quite long and sort of weird episode with a bit of everything. I want to add a small bit of housing out here as well, and I'm thinking some medium density from the UK pack. Something that is much smaller in scope, but with a pretty good view. There's plenty of spaces where we can place big fancy detached mansions with good viewpoints, but I want to have some apartment buildings that are quite attractive as well, that aren't necessarily placed in, you know, the downtown core of Fort John or any of the other two cities. So there's a bit of land out here right next to Forge Point, which I think could be a fun place to try this. So my idea was to grab some, let's see, we'll grab maybe the angled parking alley. And then I'm just going to pause and let's see, I'll enable contour lines. So it's not completely flat here. That's something to keep in mind. And then let's see, I kind of want to add a key to one of the sides because that kind of restricts the parking, as you can probably see. So let's see how we're going to do this, because that is obviously also going to restrict the zoning. So I'll add in these small stretches here of these parking roads, and I have an idea with all of this in a second, but for now it's obviously just gonna look a little weird. And then we'll add in another curved segment on the, let's see, kind of the inside of the whole complex right in here, and maybe one more curved segment moving like this. Now I'm gonna grab the alley and enable some snapping, and then hopefully with some complex curve mode, it's gonna be fairly easy to get these connected up. We're gonna remove the keys. So as long as I got some snapping help, this should work all right. I am just a little tempted to try and go for some of this Eastern European stuff, because I haven't used any of that just yet. And, you know, for good reason. It's the first episode really after the pack came out, and this is an American, more or less an American series. But I mean, I kind of want to try and use some of this, to be honest. So we're gonna give it a go, I think. I'm gonna play some of these, and then maybe we can like change the coloring a little bit and kind of make it look like a more modern development. Yeah, we'll give it a go. I think is the conclusion after this. As long as I streamline the colors, maybe make the colors a little more subdued, even though it is cool with all these
different color palettes, then I mean, I think it could work pretty well. Oh, this blue is actually beautiful. It's gonna be more boring. The developers would never take a chance like this, unfortunately. But maybe something like this. Should we have just the one here by the no, we're gonna keep it as is. And then for the color scheme, let's grab this one and make it a little more boring. So this is okay, we can keep that white because that's the main facade. This will have to be the roof then. I think we're gonna go with a dark gray, like some sort of aluminium or something, and we'll just copy paste that to the wrist. Obviously it makes it a lot more boring, but these are actually renovated with some pretty nice, you know, beautiful windows and stuff like that. So I think we can kind of sell this off as like a modern development. Going to make sure this is a district, of course. And then I'm going to be using some net lanes, these pedestrian sidewalks. I'm gonna place these down, and then we'll add in some invisible pedestrian paths underneath so that these are fully functional. But first I just gotta connect a few of them, of course. We'll enable snapping so that they kind of branch together. And just kind of move through this area and add this in. It's gonna have like a decorative, I guess, function as well, which is obviously great. I think to proper integrate this with the surroundings, we could actually also just have these segments kind of cut through like the front of the building here as part of the base, maybe. All right, we've grabbed the invisible pedestrian path, and now it's just time to move underneath all of these, and we can see that it starts to connect to the parking roads and some of the alleys in between, so that people are hopefully going to use this. I'm not really sure how much, because there isn't really anything of recreational value, at least not like functionally, any like park space or stuff like that, but we could add that, of course, just to make it a little more attractive. But I mean, there's gonna be a ton of people living out here with all these buildings, and yeah, this is turning into one of the more weird builds here in Easthaven County. But I kind of like to experiment a bit, and I just really wanted to use something from this pack, and I have a pretty cool idea, I feel, with another massive asset from this pack, but that's gonna be for one of the upcoming episodes here in Easthaven. We are gonna hit play to let people move in and just place a few trees here and there. And hopefully the fact that I've built this kind of in isolation means that when we get back up here in Chestnut to add in additional housing or maybe industry, commercial, whatever we do, then the fact we've already built this without care for any of the surroundings, because there really isn't any surroundings, is just going to help make everything look a lot more organic, basically. So if we were to add in, for instance, some suburban sprawl, let's add suburban sprawl. Let's do just that. Suburban alley. Gonna grab this one and just gonna have a road cut through right here and connect all the way up here. Maybe add in a cul-de-sac or two, one cul-de-sac, and maybe just a road like this. And then we're gonna use the key tool to do a few upgrades and stuff so that we can kind of align where we actually want the zoning to be. So I don't want it to be alongside this street. I want it to primarily be alongside some of these lanes here. And let's add in a medium cul-de-sac right here and get some zoning going. And I think we're just going to go for some regular low density housing. Now, of course, I need to make sure that Chestnut is served by all the local services out here in on Cape Rose, although Cape Rose doesn't have its own recycling center, so it's actually one in Chowder Bay that handles it. Just make sure that we have all the coverage we need, and we've got the Fort John General Hospital also serving this area, but I think that's because it's basically serving the... yeah, it's pretty much serving the entire city. So I added a bit of additional suburban sprawl over here just to make this whole area tie in a little better. And I think that's actually gonna be it for this episode. I'm pretty happy with everything we achieved. Some pretty big changes that bodes well for the future expansion here in Easthaven County. But I do apologize if it was a bit of an chaotic, disjointed episode. I recorded some like more than a week ago and have had to like record small bits and pieces when I could. Because we had a bit of an emergency. We discovered mold in several walls in the office, so we had to tear down all the wallpaper and like treat the walls and paint, and yeah, it's been a little chaotic. So yeah, like I said, I'm sorry if that has kind of affected the episode. I kind of feel it has, at least. So I guess that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, all the feedback, nice comments. There are so much great feedback on the previous episode. The old harbor, we're gonna implement lots of that in the future, don't worry. Just didn't get around to it this time around. Goodbye.